Hello, I'm Katie Harrison and this is Stepmum Space, the judgment-free zone where we'll talk candidly about the fairy tales and scary tales of stepmom life. So whether you've been a stepmom for years, you're just starting out, or you want to understand the stepmom in your life a little bit better, this is the place for you. Before we start, just a note that today's show will contain conversations around baby loss. So by definition, us stepmums are optimists. We have to be, right? Because over 2/3 of partnerships where there are children from a previous relationship fail. It's not all doom and gloom though, because research also shows that those who do make their stepfamilies work can have one of the strongest and longest lasting relationship structures there is. My guest today, Erin, not her real name, has been a stepmum for over a decade and has experienced plenty of ups and downs along the way. Erin got in touch with me to share her story. So, Erin, thanks for joining me.
Hello.
So you met your husband when you were 22, didn't you?
He was on holiday in the place that I was living and he was cycling past my house. And we ended up chatting and it went from there. We pretty much started talking every day on the phone for a few months, and then maybe 3 months after talking every day, he just came up to where I lived and asked me if I would love him back. So I said I would, and that is how we started our relationship, basically, quite quick and in the deep end.
Well, that sounds so romantic. Did it feel like that at the time?
Yeah, it was really romantic. I don't think I'd ever been swept off my feet as much as I had by him. He was the most honest and sincere person I'd ever and still have ever had relationship with. Obviously, I'm married to him. But yeah, I mean, he's a lot older than me, so he's 14 years older than me.
So at 22 and sort of meeting a man who's 36, got 2 kids, it's quite the plunge to take. What did your friends and family think?
I don't think parents ever dream or imagine of their little girl falling in love with a man who's divorced with children. I don't think that's a path any parent would choose for their children themselves, but they just had to meet my husband once to understand why I'd made the choices I had. And I mean, my mum from the office said that you're more you than ever before. And it's true, because for the first time I was loved for just being me. Everything about me was good enough for this man. He also was going into this relationship really openly and honestly, and he was honest and open to my parents from the beginning, so they were really happy for me. But my friendships changed dramatically, I would say, from the moment we got together. Things moved pretty fast once we decided to be together. So the being together took a while, like the decision for that. So after he came up and asked me to love him back, we actually ended up having some really difficult conversations, because you have to when there are little people involved. We actually took the time to have some difficult conversations, like I wanted to know if he would ever get married again, if he'd ever have children again, because those were things. I'm 22. Those are things in my life I wanted, and I didn't want to give up on them.
And how old were the children when you first got together?
They were 7 and 9 when we first got together.
And how were those early years with them?
With the girls, it was really lovely. That relationship, I let them lead very much. They had seen their dad have a very difficult period of time, and they are the most loving, caring girls. All they wanted was their dad to be happy, and they had noticed a change in him. And he rang me once he told them that we had decided to be together, and told me that his eldest had actually said, "Oh, so this is the lady that makes you happy, Daddy. That's good."
Oh, God, love her.
So I think from the off, they knew I made their dad happy, and that made a big impacting how they felt about me. I just let them lead it. So I didn't hug them until they wanted a hug. I didn't hold their hand until they asked for my hand. I
Mm.
didn't I didn't kiss them goodnight. I remember the first time kissing my youngest goodnight was about a year into when we lived together. And I was skipping down the stairs because that was such a momentous moment that I had been asked to tuck in. Since then, it's just grown and grown. And yeah.
It's really interesting that in the beginning they were so secure in themselves to be happy about this is the woman who makes daddy happy. Because quite often on the show we hear that actually stepchildren, particularly stepdaughters, can feel quite threatened or can feel quite torn and almost like they're betraying their mother by feeling positive towards the stepmother. So it's interesting that from the off the girls felt positive towards you.
So I think, yes, at the beginning, I think those elements crept in over time, especially with my eldest. I think that changed with how the relationship grew. So obviously you don't just love your stepchildren. You might never love your stepchildren, to be fair. But
And
you know,
that's quite a brave thing to put out there. Lots of people do, but lots of people don't. And I think people feel really guilty if they don't. And I do think it's important to acknowledge it's okay to form whatever relationship works. And like you
absolutely,
say, you might not love them, and that is okay.
that is okay. And I think we need to just make that it should never be mandatory to love anybody.
Mm.
Like just because you're in the role doesn't mean you have to love your stepchildren. I am very lucky that I grew to love my stepchildren. Love doesn't just happen overnight. I don't think, especially when you haven't birthed the child, you
Mm.
haven't grown them in your body, and they don't have physical representations of you. They're actually physical representations of the woman who left walking around your house.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's not necessarily something that is very easy for you
Mm.
to, so growing to love a person is very different. And I definitely grew to love my children, and I call them my children because that's how I see them.
So the relationship with your stepdaughters started off really positively by the sounds of it. Did it continue that way?
No, it changed and developed. I think it's always been positive. I think I should state that it has always been positive, but it has changed in terms of what you mentioned about sometimes there's this torn feeling of between mum and stepmum. And I definitely saw that much more with my eldest because she very much has a place for me in her life as her stepmom. That is my role. That is what I am to her. But I'm not allowed. I'm not mum. And I know I'm not mum. There are certain things that only mum is able to do. And that's absolutely fine because that is the relationship that she wants with me. And like I said before, they lead on that relationship. So what she needs and wants for me, I provide. And what she needs to hold me at distance because it hurts to cross that boundary for her is absolutely fine. Whereas for my youngest, she needs me as a mummy figure. She needs me in a much more every kind of way. And I have a different role in her life, which is difficult to balance as well when you've got children
Hmm.
and they need different things from you. But also I do have different relationships with my stepchildren because of how much one wants me and one will hold me away.
Do you find that quite easy to adapt to those sort of different roles?
I do now. I mean, I've had 10 years of practice, and it's always evolving, it's always changing. I'd say there was a real period of time when my eldest was in like early teens, mid-teens, where she felt really conflicted. She wanted a mummy relationship, which she wasn't getting from her mum. She really wanted one.
Mm.
But and she was getting from me, but the thing that I started to notice was she'd start to replace me in memories. So she'd tell me some days about things that she'd done with her mum, and she hadn't done those with her mum. She'd done them with me.
Oh, really?
And it would cause and it would cause an argument with her younger sister who would go, that wasn't with mummy, that was with Erin. And they'd have this huge argument, and I'd then have to kind of break it up and go, it really was with me, but it's okay if you want to put mum in that position. That's okay. I don't mind. And I think that's something that we also have to bear in mind, that kind of conflict of relationship. That is a psychological thing, that she wanted that from her mum, wasn't getting it. I was providing it, but she replaced me in those memories. That hurts on so many levels.
Yeah.
Because I've made all that effort, I've built that relationship, and I'm doing all those things because they need and they want it, and yet I'm still replaced. I'm the replaceable one.
Taking a step back to the beginning of your journey with your partner, the two young girls, and you talked about how you were quite confident in the beginning and you really let them lead the way and everything seemed to be going well. At what point did the hurdles start coming up?
Straight away. Like, hurdles started straight away. I don't think there's been a day of being a stepmom where there isn't a hurdle. It was quite fast paced at the beginning, but they set the pace and they set what they wanted and what they needed. Maybe a bit too soon for me, looking back, but I did it.
And did you move into the home that they had lived in sort of as a family pre the separation?
Yes, I moved into their family home.
That's quite a big thing.
Yeah. It's not great, and it never got better in the 8 years that we lived there. It wasn't home for me. It was home for them. And I fully understand why my husband did that. His wife left. He wanted to keep the home so that the girls had that security, that base. However, for me, I didn't choose that home. They did. There are memories literally etched into the door frames of heights of all of them. Mum, dad, kids, from babies upwards. Every aspect of the house when I moved in was pretty much as it had been when their mum had left. That house was once hers, and let's face it, she lorded that over me for 8 years. And, she would still treat it like a home. She would wander on in without knocking. She would constantly say things like, remember when we did this, or when this happened in this room, and constantly just little seed drips of this was my home, this was my place, this is my family, you're a interloper, lady. I didn't actually meet her face to face for about a year of me and my husband being together. So that meant in the transition days, so when the kids were being picked up or whatever from the home, I'd actually be asked to leave.
You'd be asked to leave your own home?
Yeah, I was asked to leave and not come back for a certain amount. I remember sometimes getting back and she still hadn't left, so I had to drive around the block in circles until I saw her car leave.
And would that be your partner asking you to leave?
Yeah, he asked me to leave. This is in the early days, obviously before she met me, because she's quite a volatile lady in those days. So I think he was protecting the girls from some kind of blowout that she would have had in front of them. She had no qualms about doing that. And also protecting me from being screamed at, which would have also happened, So I think there's all sorts there, but yeah, I moved into their family home, and I don't think it matters if you paint the walls or buy new furniture, hang your own family pictures. It doesn't change the fact that was their family home with history, it's things like you rest your head in the knowledge that she used to rest her head in the same room, different sheets, and in our case a different bed, but she still used to look in the same mirrored wardrobe, shower in the same bathroom, and things like that. Over time, living in a place like that, it does affect you, I think, especially if it's your home.
You've talked a bit before about the anxiety that you felt in those early years.
Yeah, like I mentioned, I was a confident 22-year-old when we started, and I think by the age of 25 I was a mess. I think this is quite a hard time of my life to talk about, and I think we need to acknowledge the simple fact up front that stepmums operate at such a heightened level of self-awareness and self-assessment. You know, we question everything, and over time that causes such extreme mental and emotional fatigue. And for a 22-year-old woman to take on that with quite a difficult ex-wife in the picture broke me down. Parents don't have to run everything through the "is this my role" filter that stepmoms do, you know.
Yeah, it's so true. And, you know, the overthinking, and I think you articulated it so well, that a lot of stepmoms carry around makes it so hard to just be yourself and live your life. You feel kind of constantly under surveillance, don't you?
Yeah, and you know, even from things of like, will they tell their mum I swore the other day because I stubbed my toe? And the answer is yes. Always yes. They will tell that you swore. What the bit that they'll leave out is that you stubbed your toe.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So the context of that swear, it'll go out the window, you know, and all you can think is, I am gonna get shit for this.
And the other bits that will be left out is the fact you got up early with them in the morning and made pancakes and took them out for a nice walk and did cake decorating in the afternoon and had a friend over for them and all those other lovely things. But the bit that gets
Yeah.
retold is Erin said a naughty word.
Yeah. My husband's ex-wife was unpredictable. You know, I didn't know how she would handle situations. Her reactions and behaviors were so erratic. I didn't even know if I was coming or going, you know, whether I needed to back off, which was something she would say quite regularly, or sometimes she'd say, you need to step up and actually be a stepmom. You know, I needed to not get involved, but I did need to drop them off, pick them up, talk through the issues, support them in everything they needed to do, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And all along, oh, but you need to know your place and stay in your lane. Like,
It's
I
so
don't know what lane
difficult.
I'm in.
It's so difficult. And how you're kind of at spaghetti junction and then your car breaks down in the middle, doesn't it? And how
Yeah.
was your partner during this? Because I'm guessing when you talk about the judgment that you felt, that predominantly came from his ex rather than him.
From the start, my husband, like I mentioned, he wanted me to be all in. That was his choice, his decision. And by that, he meant all in. Like, I had to be willing to do the discipline. I was an equal member of that household, and I was, in his eyes, a parent from the off.
And did you find that helpful, or did you find that that was too much pressure on you?
Ooh.
Because it's interesting, some people find that, you know, very helpful to know, hey, I'm equal in this family and we're a team. And then other women say, well, actually, I feel like my husband or partner should have maybe stepped up a little bit more rather than pass a lot of the tough tasks on to me.
Oh, he never passed anything on. Like, and it was always it and always is a partnership. Like, we discipline together. If there's a difficult conversation to have, we do it together, because we wanted everyone to know we're a united front. And like, the girls needed to know that the rules came from us both. Like, you couldn't behave one way with Daddy and a different way with Erin. Like, it was the same. So in some ways it was, I think for us as well, we had those difficult decisions at the very beginning of how we wanted to be and what it meant. I didn't know really what that meant at 22, but it was useful to know that if I did step up to do something, he had my back. The difficulty came when it was disagreed with by the mum,
Mm.
and she was volatile and shouty and scary, you know. And
To you or
I,
the children?
to me, it
Mm.
was all directed at me. I was a roadblock to her ever being able to have a life that she'd once had back, you
Mm.
know. And so everything that all that, even though she'd ended her marriage, all of that pain, upset and blame she threw at me, because because she can't throw it at the dad. He did nothing, you know. She can just throw it all at me, because who am I to her, you know?
But you also
Uh,
did nothing. And that's, you know, that's a lot of the time the stepmom does take the wrath, but the majority of the time stepmom had nothing to do with the marriage breaking up.
Oh, I had absolutely, nothing to do with it. I think it's easier to blame someone you don't have an emotional connection to in that
Mm,
situation. And let's
mm.
face it, the step parents, that person, all of that anger, all of that pain got thrown at me. And just by being me, I was a severe problem.
And did you ever, I mean, it probably sounds like a really silly question, but did you ever manage to have any conversation or communication with her about this?
Um, yes, eventually it took years. I would say it took eight years. Those years that are difficult for me to talk about are the years that my anxiety, stress levels built to a point where I was a mess. I would get trauma response to her phoning. Like I would literally start to have a panic attack if her name came up on my phone.
Mm.
Um, and she would call up to 12 times a night just to intrude on the one-on-one time that I had with my husband.
Yeah, you don't get that honeymoon period at the beginning when it's just the two of you, do you?
No, and those couple of nights a week that are just yours are important, and yet they would be interrupted regularly, with some kind of demand to talk to my husband about something under the guise of for the kids, but it wasn't. It was about her. And I just ended up shrinking into a box of that was required of me. I lost myself over those years. I physically changed how I looked, what I did, how I spoke, how I dressed, just to fit into this smaller, less vibrant box that she required of me.
Oh.
And I would say the breaking point was maybe I caught myself a bit like an out of body. I remember it like an out of body experience. It obviously wasn't, but I remember it like that, watching myself being shouted at by this woman and doing on the phone, doing nothing,
Well,
I
I
hadn't
think in
even
those
known it long.
situations, if you react, you're the bad one,
Yeah.
and it often feels like, and I hear from a lot of stepmums that we're expected to take whatever's thrown at us by anybody. But when there's only so many kind of stones you can put in a glass of water before the glass of water bubbles over, and when we bubble over, there's no recognition of the cause of that. It's all on the
Mhm.
stepmom.
Yeah, absolutely. I suddenly realized that there was a button that would end that call, end the shouting, end the onslaught. But I didn't press it, Katie. I didn't press it. And then I looked at my husband as if like, I need you to press this button.
Mm.
But he didn't press it either. And I think after that amount of years, that amount of trauma, that amount of distress, you don't know what to do. And if I remember silently crying and laying every insult and stab at my self-worth cut through.
Oh.
And I remembered all the other times that this had happened over similarly innocent and not wrong things, just things that had actually stung that woman's ego.
Mm.
And I pressed the red button
Congratulations.
and the phone rang again.
Okay.
But instead of answering, I turned the phone off. I unplugged the phone from the wall and my husband turned his phone off. And we didn't talk about it. And in the morning, I looked in the mirror and I didn't really recognize the person in front of me. And it was the morning that I remember because when I turned my phone on, there's that fear. What's what am I returning to? There were no angry texts. There were no voicemails. There were nothing. That was the day I decided boundaries would be my best friend.
And I'm guessing that things turned around from there.
Yeah, that was the day that I had a real honest discussion with my husband that he had to put me first sometimes when my well-being was being endangered. We set down some boundaries that we wanted. We made rules that would protect our own mental health, that would protect our home, that would protect how we interacted and behaved. And yeah, she pushed back against those boundaries a few times, but literally for 3 months, there was 3 months of pushback. And, from that moment, I built myself back up. I started playing my instruments again. I started gigging, performing. I started wearing colour again. My wardrobe was grey and black for many years, which was rare for me. And I started to wear colour again. And I told myself every day that I am worth loving too, and I'm worth being at the top of the pile.
And I think just listening to you say that, I'm so thrilled that you have realized that, because so many of us don't, like, genuinely don't feel that, whether that's because of the societal perception of, well, you knew what you were getting into when you met someone with children, or whether it's because other people in our story make us believe that.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about when you first met your husband, your desire to kind of get married, and have children of your own. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when we first had those conversations, children was something he said he could absolutely do again, and that in time with me he would want to, which was wonderful. In the messy years that I just spoke about, I lost a pregnancy, um, and then I was told I wouldn't ever really be able to carry a baby to term after that.
I'm sorry you had to go through that.
It's okay. Um, I was quite seriously ill during that time, and we could have tried again for pregnancy, but it wasn't something that would have been safe for me. Um, I didn't actually talk to anyone except my husband about the fact that I lost a baby for 6 years. It took that long to process emotionally everything that had happened, the going through all of the anxiety and stress of being a stepmom and being the person my family needed me to be.
Mm.
That I just didn't let anything other than stepmom life enter my head. I had to be what they needed, so I was what they needed. I've only just really talked about it for the first time the last couple of years to family and friends, and been able to talk through it, because that was something that for us as a couple we had to go through quite lonely, because we've got two little people you've got to protect from
Mm.
that grief.
Mm.
So we didn't talk about it, and we had to just carry on. And that's a grief that you don't, being told that you won't be able to have the family you dreamt of.
Mm.
um, that's a grief that you don't get over. You grow around it. And whether society sees me as a mum or not, I am a mum. I'm a mum to two children that didn't make it Earth size, and two stepdaughters.
Yeah.
And I love my stepdaughters wholeheartedly, and I lent into being a mum in whatever capacity that was for them, like I mentioned. And I do it well. It's not a choice I made, it was a choice taken from me to not have my own children. But I did choose my family. I chose to stay, and I choose to love the children I do have in my life. I've only been able to admit to that in the last couple of years.
Mm.
Before that, I was trying to fit myself into this box that was needed of me to protect another woman's ego, because I couldn't be a mum in her head, because that erased her meaning, which is silly because I'm not their mum, I'm their stepmom. It's a completely different thing. And I
Mm.
don't want to take her role.
We know we're capable of loving more than one human, and it doesn't mean we love them all in the same way. So really, why should it not be okay for children to love more than one human? And I think what it comes down to is that feeling, that just deep down feeling of just feeling a bit threatened.
My stepchildren don't love me how they love their mum and dad. It's not the same. Like, mum and dad are the people who made you, created you.
Mm.
Like, that kind of love, I think, is kind of granted and guaranteed, really. The love of a stepmom is something that's built and earned.
But don't you think somehow that, for me, that makes it more powerful?
Yeah, absolutely. My relationship with my kids is strong
Mm.
because of the fact that I have had to work every single day for a decade to build it. Like, it hasn't just been assumed, it would be given. It wasn't just mandatory.
Yeah.
It was worked at, and it was earned through a lot of years of difficult times.
So you're a decade in, and you've clearly learnt a huge amount along the way. What advice would you give to somebody who's in the early years of stepmotherhood?
I would say it's okay to start off in this role and realize it's not right for you, is the one thing that I think a lot of people maybe wouldn't admit to. This role was right for me, but I think it's okay if you start in this role and over time you realize this just isn't right for you. It's okay to leave. You can leave. Like,
Mm.
that's not right or wrong. That's your choice, and you shouldn't be made to feel guilty about it. I think I would say there's no right or wrong way to step parent. You do what works for your family, and do not put yourself in a box because of someone else's ego. Don't shrink your wonder because someone else can't take it.
I love that. And I'm so delighted that you're wearing colour again.
Me too.
So, Erin, I've just loved talking with you today. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I know it hasn't been easy. So, I really appreciate your honesty and the bravery in sharing some of the more painful parts of your journey. I know it will help an awful lot of women who'll be listening. So it's a real privilege that you've trusted me with your story. So thank you.
Thanks for having me to chat.
Wow, that was a powerful listen. And again, a big thank you to Erin for her vulnerability and sharing her journey so generously with me. I hope there was something in that conversation which you can take away and which will help. As always, a massive thanks to everyone who's been in touch with me. I love reading all your messages and hearing how the podcast has helped you. If you've got a story you'd like to share on Stepmum Space, then please do get in touch. You can find me on all the socials at Stepmum Space or at stepmumspace.com, where you will also find the UK's first Stepmum forum. Yes, that's right, we have a forum where we can chat, share stories, get advice and meet other women on this same roller coaster. The forum's at www.stepmumspace.com/forum. So thanks for listening, and if you've enjoyed this episode, please do spread the word, give us a rating or review so other stepmums can find us, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode.